Hello, Stevie.
Hello, Gordon.
Right, so this is the last of our videos for now. There will be more later on in the months ahead, I'm sure. But the final question really is something that astounded me, and it blew my mind because I asked you to do a talk for our conference back in November. Um, and you said, yeah. And it was taking you completely out of your comfort zone. But you didn't write a 45-minute talk. You wrote a 6-week workshop because on your 45-minute talk, you think, but they need to know this, they need to know that, they need to know something else. Uh, Talk us through it. What were you thinking?
Perfect, real life, lived experience example of overwhelm and my unique way of trying to deal with that. Um, yeah, asked to talk and about, mental health and all well-being and neurodiversity. It's such a huge thing. Where do we even begin? And so, trying to plan that, I was like, right, okay, we'll start here. We'll do this. We need to know about this. But oh no, if we do that, I best explain this. And then I was like, hang on a minute, but that don't make sense without this. I was like, oh dear, here we go. My mind exploded. And so, in a way to try and reduce my overwhelm to write the talk, I started to list, and a bit like, I don't know if anyone's seen, I'm sure they probably have by now, Andrew's brainstorm. That was a bit like me trying to work out what was important and what was the priority thing to deliver in this short space of time. Um, but I continued with overwhelm because I realized that that's just a doorway. It's only a beginning a talk, and even if I can deliver information in those times that resonates with somebody in that moment, they still need time to process that and take that home into real life experiences and see how that relates to them, see if it's useful, and practice the use of that. And that was, the defining point really is that these things do not come overnight. We have to try and build them. And so, yeah, I did try and deliver it and put it into one. And I'm like, well, that one day is just kind of an introduction point to explore. And you need time to be able to build on these things. Like I say, you need to be able to process it, take it back, look at how that looks for you in your actual reality and work with that and practice that as well. And I think it's important to, continue and build each week on these practices, because you can then, I'm giving the encouragement to reflect and to pause and to be able to teach you the things, that I've harped on about, gratitude, awareness for yourself, and, the pride for your authentic self. And I also feel that doing that with other people, it allows people to, in a safe, non-judgmental space, to realize that we've all got struggles. They might look similar, they might look different, but we're all battling these things. And I think that then also allows us to be kinder to ourselves.
Yeah.
But there was just so much information that, I can't deliver an end point. They have to, I feel, for me, it's about having a logical understanding of how your brain works and how your nervous system works. And once you've got that biological understanding, you can then work with your unique personality and how that fits for you, for your lifestyle, and move forward with it. But it takes practice. So,
Mm.
yeah, 6 weeks is only the beginning.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well,
it's enough to give you those skills to take and continue forward.
yeah, yeah, most definitely. Because it is even 6 weeks is just a small taster of, and I think it's really important of your experiences. It doesn't necessarily mean that's somebody else's experiences, but you've turned it into being, here's my experiences, and then I've turned it into being generic, and you have to then as a listener turn that generic into their own unique, and interpret it and decipher it in the way that their family operate and everything else. So it's flexible in so many ways as to, here's how I dealt with a situation. um, think about it. Would that work for your family? If not, how can you adapt that accordingly? And part of the information you're giving is the flexibility of you. I think somebody I read or heard, whereas don't ever take my word for it. Listen to what's being said, explore it, ask questions, and then maybe try it. But don't just take it as fact, because my fact isn't your fact, my truth isn't your truths. And I think why the 6 week workshop works, and saying that, but that is just the tip of the iceberg is so true, because we have to sort of say, right, I've tried this didn't work. Where do I go from here? What should I be looking at? What should I be trying, etc.
That's the thing. A lot of these practices and a lot of things that I've come across, they ask you, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Well, there's nothing wrong with you. I prefer to ask, what's happened to you? Where are you at right now? And what do you need? And I think to answer them questions in those moments is incredibly difficult for people. And so that's what this initial 6 weeks is about. It's giving them the awareness to start to understand and build, the healthy habits and the understanding and the thought to themselves to be able to move forward from where they are. Because like we've said before, we could all have very similar situations or similar challenges, but it's never for any single two people going to be exactly the same ever. One experience can be worlds apart effectively. One can be feeling it in a real intense way, perhaps not at all. There's so many different presentations, and I think it's hard to cater for all those things. However, I'm not trying to help fix people. I just want to give them the tools to be able to understand and do that for themselves, because no one person can actually relate truly to such a broad spectrum of different experiences and needs. And so it's about educating people and children to work with who they authentically are and what they have got, their skills, their struggles, and find a different way. And that's their way. That's not for me to tell them. That's for them to discover themselves.
And I think for me, the amazing thing is when you're talking, it's a matter of, oh my God, have you experienced that as well? And I think, well, yeah, because you're not alone. If you're experiencing it or you're thinking it, you can guarantee there's a lot of other people experiencing and thinking these sort of things as well. And the information is, or your responsibility as an individual is to find out, what did you do to overcome that? Did it work? Did it not work? And how can I adapt that? And I think for me, that's the most important part of any kind of workshop, any kind of information, is to pass on, to sort of say, you're not alone, you're not the only one, and this is how we did it, but you now need to adapt to your style. We've got sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'll let you reply to that.
No, to me, that's the element of science, really. At the end of the day, we are all very different, and our brains and our bodies do operate different, but we do have basic biology and science that we all work very similarly to, and from a basis of, and I think giving people the logic and understanding of that opens up huge doors, really, because, like you say, there's a lot of silent struggles. And I think with the way social media and society develops, those struggles are being hidden more and more and more and suffered in silence, because people feel guilt, we feel ashamed, we don't want to admit, these thoughts that we see to be different or whatnot. But I feel that the more that we encourage people and the more that I model that, like you say, it opens up the reality for so many people that go, oh, wow, you feel like that too. And I think I've experienced it myself, and I've also watched it in support groups and with, groups of people that I've worked within. That familiarity, that community understanding has really, really given people confidence in themselves and who they are. And that is, a vital starting point, really.
So when you did your 6 week workshop, it was just a few weeks ago now. I came across somebody else who was very, very similar in the way that they were asked to fill in a PIP form, right? And it got rejected, so he was taken to a tribunal, and they asked him for additional information. 100 pages later, he says, but they need to know about this. And when I explained that, they needed to know why that was that and that was this. And he went into so much minute detail. And I said to him, I said, you're intelligent, your need to put everything down is actually causing you the hindrance, because no one's going to read 100 pages. Particularly the DWP, they ain't got the time, they're not going to do it. So the easiest thing is to say, no, you don't meet criteria. And so in your information to the courts, because he was going to court this particular morning, and says you need to say why you put in 100-page evidence, because this is really debilitating for you to go through your everyday situation, having to explain this bit, but now you've explained that there's more to it than this, you have to now explain this little bit. And therefore that's your disability of people sort of getting fed up with you, or you're not being able to do your work fast enough and that, because if you don't explain that, the pain it causes you to think but they need to know this, I've got to tell them, where actually you don't, because they understand it. But for you, you have to get that out, otherwise you can't move forward. And that was a really sort of light bulb moment for him. And so we took all of that to the court, and from getting 0 on everything, he got maximum, because the courts understood where he was coming from and what was there. So do you find that it can be debilitating for you that you have to do all of that?
Totally. Totally. You know, there is an element of kind of rigid and literal thinking going on. It's a process. And for me, I've got so many thoughts and so many things whizzing around in my brain. I know I need to calm that to have this rational thinking space. And you have to find a way to outlet them. You can't suppress them, because they're still going to be there somewhere. And that very much resonates with me. You know, the pain, the frustration, and all the emotion that this person would have, you know, probably endured from having that initial rejection. They felt misunderstood. They felt they haven't explained themselves enough, which is a common problem, struggle for neurodivergent people. Sorry, losing my words now. And so, yeah, we do often have that over explanation. And I've done that in so many situations. And like you said, you do get totally discredited, because you're trying to show a level of understanding and you don't feel it's being reciprocated. So you kind of overload that level, and you've just lost the person effectively. And so it's like you're living in two separate universes, effectively talking two different languages. And that exactly there is like a typical communication barrier, as you say, in the world when it comes to navigating work, jobs, schools, paperwork, you know, PIP, and the horrible things, aren't they, I imagine? So it comes up more than you would ever imagine, you know, communicating with dog trainer, the swimming class teacher, the bus driver, you know, it all comes out, you know. Sometimes, for example, like I use the bus driver, if you're not sure where you're going, you don't just get on the bus and ask for a ticket to where you're going. You generally say, am I on the right bus? Did I go here? Is this going to go on this stop? And the bus driver's like, not being able to operate on that level. And so you have to bring it back. And again, it's about regulation and balance and meeting people where they're at, and also having people meet us where we're at.
Yeah. And again, it's almost giving validation, giving permission to it's okay, isn't it, really?
It is, and it's been a very hard thing for me in my experiences to learn. But there are millions of people in this world, and I am not going to resonate and communicate well with all of them. I wouldn't be able to, you know, it's just not realistic. I wouldn't want to. Kindly love you all, but you know, you find your people, and we do have to find people, and we do have to navigate people that aren't necessarily understanding and our people, and they are struggles, but we just find our different ways. Whereas the support groups, the people that have lived it, the people that, might not have the same experience in a struggle to you, but they're open because they have their own experiences of their own struggles. They're just a lot kinder and a lot more forgiving. And yeah, some people are for you, some people are not for you. And it's great as long as we pass each other, with kindness and no sort of angst, really.
Yeah, yeah, no, most definitely. And to finish, now you don't have to answer any of this, but I'm going to be a bit truthful because people will be watching this and they'll be thinking we've got our shit together. Um, and I think that's from the truth, especially for me. I get things wrong every single day. I've been dealing with this journey of neurodivergence for the last 21 years now. And I still make mistakes every single day. Do you?
Yes, every single day. And realistically, I think I've just nailed it, and I think I might not have it unitedly together, but I might have just got this sort of thing and I'm rolling with this, and the next day, the next week, the next month, it all goes to water again, because my abilities today are not my abilities tomorrow. Some things I can do today, I can do really easily, whereas tomorrow, because of other environmental things or the fact of my own regulation, my own needs, it's not going to be as easy tomorrow. And that's about giving ourselves kindness for that again, because I most definitely do not have my ducks in a row at all. I'm juggling them, and I can't say I'm even juggling them well. They're off, they're here, they're on the floor, And some days I might have a flow. It might look good, but then again, it'll all go. It is about modeling real. It really is. I've learned a lot, and I, in effect, have got my ducks in a row compared to where I once did. But that is that healthy growth. I am not competing with other people that are my age, in my experience, my environment. I'm not looking at their ducks because I'm too busy keeping an eye on my own. And I think that's what's really important, because I am confident. I've moved miles in myself, and having the confidence to say that as well is huge, really. And you might ask me tomorrow and I might be crying and roaring and going, oh, Gordon, my life's falling to bits. This is going wrong. That's going wrong. But then again, it's, for me, that's where I've learned I need to then take that breath, have a moment with my breathing, pause, reflect, and actually, ground myself, reflect and look at where I have come. Because sat here in a calm moment, like I say, I've come miles and miles. But in those emotional moments, we don't often look at that, and it's not as easy to see. Our brains just naturally don't work like that. So we have to sort of have a moment, and the more you practice having that moment and the more you start to notice when you're doing that, is when you can then bring yourself back, and it becomes easier to move forward again.
And haven't you noticed in these really bad decision making moments that we've done of just responding when we should have taken that breath, is the times where we actually grow and learn? I think, oh, I should have done that differently. When we've had that minute to calm down and go back, you think, okay, so it's okay to have these lapses, to get it wrong and everything else, because it's the phone call to the friend, the phone call to the other parent that knows what you're going through, and you're sort of saying, oh, I've gone and done this and this. That's all right, but maybe try this next time. I think, oh God, yeah. I was talking to a parent yesterday, and she was really kicking herself about, yeah, but I forget to do these things. I'm in the heat of the moment, and I'm shouting at them, I'm demanding this and I'm demanding that. I said, that's all right. All you need to do is start to realize the minute you've raised your voice, is knowing that the minute you realize you've done that, not the minute you do it, but the minute you realize you've done that, is you stop and you say, sorry, I've got myself carried away. I'm just going to take myself away for a couple of minutes. I'll be back. I just need to ground myself so that I'm not getting on at you. And then really modeling to show that we are human, and show our children that it's okay. But as soon as you catch yourself, and it's just learning, and that to me is the real beauty of being who we are, is that we are going to lose it, but as long as we can catch ourselves at some point and know how to get out of it.
That's the ultimate goal for me. No one's perfect. We all have their moments, but modeling real, showing our children that we all, deal with things inappropriately on occasions, but we pause and this is how we deal with it moving forward. And the more you do it, the easier it is to recognize. But that is, I know we're going back, but in my book, that is a massive part of what I'd like to run with the younger generations, because for me, my generation is mistakes are bad, mistakes, you don't want to admit your mistakes, but they're not, they are the gold. That's the beginning. Like you say, that's where we learn. And we don't need to hide from our mistakes. We need to be honest with ourselves, reflect on them, and look at, like, how could we have handled that moment better? What did I miss? What could I do next time? What could we try differently? It is just about being real and being kind, but also, this is where we grow. Mistakes are like teachers in disguise. I pop that in my notes to the kids, because they are the real gold. All the mistakes that I have made, and gosh, there's far too many to list, and I'm sure there'll be more even before the end of the day, no doubt. But that's where I've paused, reflected. No, I didn't deal with that very well. That's when I actually perhaps needed to breathe and walk away from the situation. Shouldn't have left it to there, or I shouldn't have reacted that way. I can be my own internal critic, but in a very positive way. We're still admitting and feeling the need, because our brains naturally have that inner critic, but we are using it in a healthy place. We're not using it to drag ourselves down and to mentally wear out our body budget. We're looking for growth, and for effectively, we're looking how we can be better than we was today and move forward.
And I think that's the crux of your 6-week program workshop, is that it allows us to understand that in a much more friendlier way, and it's practical tools that we can put into place now that we have been made aware of. And it's all to do with being made aware of, isn't it? Because we can't do anything unless we're aware of it, and once we're aware of it, then we can build upon.
That's exactly it. And awareness to the science and how we actually operate as a human, physical being. But it's also then, like you say, bringing awareness to your unique being and how you feel, and how you look and outlook on these situations. And again, it's using them mistakes as gold, and working with what you've got and where you are at, not where anyone thinks anyone should be at, to develop. Growth, everybody's different. We've got our own speeds, we go at our own pace, and some days it might be rabbit, some days it might be tortoise. But it's about that genuine growth, and it's unique to the individual. Some days you will proceed far easier than others, but it's about having the tools to go with to begin with.
Good. Thank you. Hopefully that's been really good. Look out for the 6-week workshop. We are going to be launching it very, very soon. Come along, because it is really, really insightful. I'm looking forward to hearing it as well properly. So
I'd like to hope to say it's the beginning of, you taking charge and changing your own path for, where you want it to go.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you, Stevie, for coming on here and sharing a lot of information I know has been uncomfortable for you, but you've done very, very well, I think.
Thank you.
So thank you for being resilient.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to go run around the garden now.
We'll speak to you later on, and thank you everybody else for bearing with us. Cheers.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.